I have a layout process video today featuring some unique shapes, a lot of trimmings, and a little bit of no-line watercoloring. This is all based on the Unexpected Inspiration series, which I will tell you more about as we go. And we are looking at storefront windows. So here is my inspiration, and we can get started. Hello everybody, my name is Misty. Welcome to Crafty Soup. I create with paper and photos in artful ways and share the process with you. As I've mentioned, this is the Unexpected Inspiration series, which is co-hosted by Sarah Scraps on her YouTube membership channel, as well as Alice Bull over on the Scrap Happy membership group. Now, I am on the Scrap Happy creative team, and I do get compensated for my blog work over there, but not for YouTube videos. Just full disclosure on that. All right, here are the photos I am working with. These are of my daughter and my husband getting ready for a D&D game day with some friends. And I chose this particular inspiration picture because it was very unique to storefronts. I've never quite seen this shape going on with a storefront window before, and I really wanted to replicate that kind of curvy rectangular shape. So I cut my background pattern paper down into 4 squares so that I could turn those corners into that curvy shape and get, I don't know, do you know what that particular shape is called? It's kind of a flower petal kind of shape in my mind. And the first try of using a punch circle to trace that curve didn't go quite as I wanted because the curve was just a little too small in scale for the entire rectangular shape. So then I pulled out this bigger chunky circle, but I couldn't get it lined up quite right. So I'm thinking about what I can do. And here's what I realized. I need a compass, not a directional compass, but a mathematical compass. Now, I used to have one a while ago. It's that kind of tool that has a pen on one side and a pencil on the other, and you put it in the middle of your paper and it draws a circle for you. Now, I don't have one of those currently. Like I said, I used to, but I'm going to make one out of my pencil. So I prepped my paper by marking the center and marking, I think, 2 inches from each edge of the 2 corners that I want to round. I am just going to tie a string to my pencil, and that is going to create a compass. When you hold that pencil point, or when you hold the string point in the center of the paper and then the pencil point out to the edge where we've marked those tick marks, it should be equal. And if it's not, just kind of adjust your string until you've got equal distance from both of those tick marks that you make. And then just hold your string tight in the center and use that pencil to trace back and forth. You want to hold your pencil nice and straight up and down so it's the same no matter how you're tracing along that curve. And it won't be perfect. As you see, I traced it several times to kind of get a rough estimate of that curve. And then I'm just going to use my scissors to trim that curve kind of somewhere along the middle of that rough estimate line. And that actually turned out way better than I expected it to. So I am pretty happy with that. And then doing the opposite side, I've got that kind of curvy petal shape. I guess it kind of reminds me of like a Moroccan tile. So if you know what the name of this shape is, let me know because I'm just not sure. All right, then I decided when I go back to my other pieces, I want them to be rotated in a certain pattern direction. So I start with having them vertically patterned, and then I will change my mind later, and you'll see why in a little bit. But here I am marking all of them so that I can stack them up and then use that top piece to trace and then stack them all up again and then cut all of the remaining curves all at once. All right, and then when I'm done, I've got my 4 pieces ready to go. I did put little tick marks on the inside corners of those so that when I put them back out, I would know how to put them back together. It's not super critical, but it did come in handy at a couple points in this process. All right, so I said that was my background paper, but really I'm going to mat that on top of an actual background piece of paper. And here I am kind of choosing. Well, before I choose that paper, I realize I want these to be spread out, so they are too big, which means if I just trim them down, my curve is no longer going to be correct. And you can see that it looks awkward just after trimming that one side off. And then I realized you have to trim all 4 sides to get this to the right size, just because those curves are now in place and you have to kind of work around them. And then I'll have to restructure those curves after I get everything trimmed back down again. All right, so I've got everything trimmed back down again. I'm going to remeasure my edges, and I'm going to use that compass again. Luckily, I didn't disassemble this compass yet. And I will do this tracing on one of the pieces of paper. Then I will go ahead and stack all 4 up and cut them all at the same time. Using a couple of binder clips will help hold everything together, because if you're not holding this very tight, when you try to cut into 4 sheets of paper, one or the other will tend to slip. And so the binder clips are going to help me keep everything nice and snug. All right, I solved that problem, and I've got these shapes back how I want them and in the size that I want them. But you'll see I struggle with some other problems a little bit later down the road as well. It wouldn't be real crafting if there weren't real struggles, right? Now, as you can see, I've rotated that wood grain paper again, so now it's horizontal, and that's going to be better for my title to sit on and flow along that edge. So that becomes another one of the struggles as I move through choosing this background pattern paper, is making sure I keep those wood grains oriented. And I should mention here that I am using my counterfeit kit for doing this project, which is part of another design team that I'm on. It's a totally free group where we do kit building once a month, and then we have challenges and activities to help us use up those kits. And it's a great way to stash bash if you are trying to save money. So if you want to check us out, I will leave you links to all of these groups that I've mentioned down below, both Sarah Scrap's membership channel on YouTube, as well as Scrap Happy and the Counterfeit Kit Challenge. All right, I end up picking this background paper because it kind of matches the makeup that my daughter did for this day. She kind of went with a sort of fairy look and kind of give herself a little bit of these fairy scales. And even though that paper is more kind of mermaid vibe, it really does go with her makeup. So that background paper is working out there. And I like the fact that I'm coming up with all of these unusual patterns that I wouldn't necessarily come up with, both because of the kit build that I did and also because of this store window challenge. I'm going with a lot of fashion kind of inspired items and materials and textures here. And I don't tend to go with these kind of really diverse textures together. And so it's nice to step outside of my comfort zone and go with something interesting. All right, here's where I realized I made another mistake, and that is that background paper that I picked is not the correct orientation. I wanted those scales to be downward, and I don't remember if they were sideways or upside down. I don't know, but I had to take everything back off, take it apart, and redo it again. All right, so I've got those button textures going on in my title block, and I am going to use each of these blocks for different jobs on this layout. This one I'm going to edge with a little bit of rickrack ribbon that I had in my kit, and I don't use a lot of rickrack because I think it looks, I don't know, old-fashioned or something, but in this color black and edging this more modern shape, it's kind of giving this layout a bit of a mod fashion design, so I'm enjoying that. I needed a drink of water there. Sorry about that. In this upper square, I'm going to leave that one to be mainly embellishing, and I am going to use some florals in here as well as some of these butterflies. I did make those butterflies myself. If you missed that video, I will link you up in the corner as well as the description, and I made those by using mica watercolor on top of black mixed media paper. All right, with those items in place, I'm just going to add a few finishing details. I'm outlining several elements, both with white and with black, because I like tying the rickrack, the black of the rickrack together with the texture, or with the white border of my photo and the lightness of some of the other elements like the florals. So I am tying those together. And speaking of tying things together, I'm creating just a little piece down here underneath the photos because I had some space there that could use a little bit of something. And I'm taking the opportunity to tie in all of the different elements from the different zones into this one piece down here at the bottom. I've put the date on there in kind of a sketchy handwritten font, and then I will get all of those elements combined. And at this point, I thought I was done. I have everything glued down. The glue is mostly dried. I don't want to tip it too much because those buttons might slide a little bit. And I've got a button element, a butterfly element, a rickrack element, and I realized I was missing a floral element. So I pull out the same stamp set from my kit that I used to create those butterflies, and I'm going to do some no-line watercoloring. If you don't know what that means, it's usually done by stamping an image in a very light color, and I have two colors here that I'm kind of testing out. These are both from Gina K. So you stamp with a very light color, and then you go ahead and watercolor over that stamping, and that light color tends to disappear into whatever paint you're using. So when I stamp that first one in a darker color, I'm pretty sure that one's not going to be light enough. But I think this color is called Barely There. I'm not quite sure. I'll pop it up on the screen if I'm wrong. But that is the color that I need to use. And I believe that color was designed for doing this technique. And I haven't done it much. So once I start putting my paint on here, and this is the same mica watercolor paint I used to do the butterflies. Now, it's not the same paint that's going to match those floral embellishments already. And you don't have to use mica watercolor paint for this. In fact, you can just scribble a marker onto a plastic sheet and pick that up with a wet paintbrush and use that to watercolor. But I have the paints in my kit and I use them to do those butterflies. So I'm going to tie that together just a little bit more here. So you can see here, as I am outlining those stamped lines, I am trying to keep my paint to just the edges. As I move to the center, I will fill in more of the center focus and then give that just a little bit of shadowing around the edges, but fill it in towards the center, leaving the center more open. And then when I move to the other side of the flower, I'm going to outline from the other side towards the middle. And that is going to create some shadow, not shadow really, it's actually leaving white space between each of those floral petals so that they become distinct and they don't become just one blob of yellow color across. And as I'm working that, I will pull in just a little bit more of the color towards that white gap so that it's not completely stark and empty. It kind of blends and fades in toward each flower petal. All right, that is just a very quick idea on no-line watercoloring. If you want to see some more of my watercoloring work, I can leave you some video links down below as well. As I leave you with these close-up videos of this project, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something inspirational out of this video. If you did, I'd love to hear what it is so I can bring more of that kind of goodness to you in the future. And so, until those future videos, I hope you have an artful day.